Good morning. Today's lesson is Module 5, Lesson 28. By the end of the lesson, you'll be able to say, I can compare fractions with the same numerator pictorially. So we haven't talked about this yet, but we're going to go over some vocab, stuff that we would have done in class but haven't been able to do with our vocab notebooks. So we're talking about a numerator. So a numerator is the number on the top part of the fraction. So if we have this fraction 1/3, this number here, the 1, is the numerator. And that brings us to another term, which is, what is that number here on bottom called? That is called a denominator. So when you hear those vocabs come up in this next couple lessons, the number on top is the numerator, the number on bottom is the denominator. Okay, so by the end of today, you're going to be able to compare fractions that have the same numerator, which means the number on top for all of these fractions is going to be the same. And we're going to do that pictorially, which means using a picture. For today's lesson, you will need your whiteboard supplies or paper pencil. You'll need your Lesson 28 problem set and homework, or you can just use the Classkick link to complete them online. And you will need a pencil or a device to complete your work on. First up, we have a word problem. LaTanya has 2 equal-sized hot dogs. She cut the first one into thirds at lunch. Later, she cut the second hot dog to make double the number of pieces. What if LaTanya eats 2 pieces of each hot dog? Figure out what fraction of each hot dog she eats. So we read through the entire problem, but it's a lot of information. But we always read through the entire thing so that we know what we're trying to figure out. And we are trying to figure out what fraction of each hot dog she eats. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's do this step by step. Okay. First, LaTanya has 2 equal-sized hot dogs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 equal-sized fraction strips. And that's going to represent our 2 hot dogs. So the 2 fraction strips are the same size, just like the 2 hot dogs would be. Okay, then it says she cut the first one into thirds at lunch. So this first hot dog we're going to break into thirds. So remember, thirds is the same as 3. So we have 1, 2, 3 pieces. Later, she cut the second hot dog to make double the number of pieces. Okay? So if we want double the number of pieces, right now we have 3 pieces. To double something means to multiply it by 2. So we're going to take the 3 pieces, multiply it by 2. So if you remember your multiplication shortcuts, you can count by 3's 2 times or 2 3 times. So I'm going to count by 3's 2 times, 3, 6. 3 times 2 equals 6. So that means that my second hot dog is going to need 6 pieces. So what I'm actually going to do, because another shortcut pictorially, or using my picture, is to take the hot dog and cut it in thirds. To double the number of pieces, I need to split each of the pieces into 2. And now I have 3 times 2, which equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have those 6 pieces. Next question, what if LaTanya eats 2 pieces of each hot dog? So what we are going to do is we're going to shade 2 pieces of hot dog. 1 piece, 2 pieces. But it says of each hot dog. So she eats 2 pieces of that hot dog, and she eats 2 pieces of this hot dog. 1, 2. Next part of the question. Figure out what fraction of each hot dog she eats. So first, let's go ahead and label the fractions. This is 1 piece out of 3, 1 piece out of 3, 1/3. This is 1 piece out of 6, 1 out of 6, 1/6, 1/6, 1/6, 1/6. Okay, so let's figure out what fraction of each hot dog she eats. Well, in this hot dog, she eats 2 pieces. So she eats 2 pieces out of the 3, 2/3. In this hot dog, she also eats 2 pieces, but it's 2 pieces out of 6. So it's 2/6. So figure out what fraction of each hot dog she eats. Of the first hot dog, she eats 2/3, and then the second hot dog, she eats 2/6. And that's going to take us to our next slide. I'm not going to erase our picture, but I am going to just erase some of this. Okay. So our question now is, did Latanya eat the same amount of the first hot dog and the second hot dog? So remember, over here we said the first hot dog is 2/3. The second hot dog is 2/6. So did she eat the same amount of both the hot dogs? Well, the 2/3 comes to here. The 2/6 only comes to here. So we can tell by our shading and by using these lines here that the thirds take up more space or represent a bigger part of the hot dog. So did she eat the same amount of the first hot dog and the second hot dog? The answer would be no, because we know that she ate more of this first hot dog than the second hot dog. So we're going to put that in a comparison sentence. 2/3 and 2/6. 2/3 is greater than 2/6. Remember, the alligator teeth face the number that's bigger because it wants to eat the bigger part, just like she ate more of that hot dog. So 2/3 is greater than 2/6. So what does that mean for these numbers on the bottom? Because we talked about numerators. Numerators are the number on top. The number on top is the same for both fractions. The denominator, which is the number on bottom, that is different. And so we notice that if the number on bottom is bigger, then that means the pieces are smaller. So the bigger the denominator, the smaller the pieces. So let me change colors here. You can see that 1 piece and 1 piece, if you compare them, this 1 piece is bigger because it's split into less. This hot dog was split into less pieces, so each piece is bigger. So if you think about our chocolate bar from the other day, if you have a chocolate bar and you're only sharing it with you and one other person, you each get half. But if you're sharing it with 4 people, you're going to get less of that chocolate bar because you have to give more away. So the bigger that number on bottom, the more you have to split it up, the less each person's going to get. That brings us to our problem set. Remember, make sure you type your first name first and then your last name or last initial. Okay, so lesson 28 problem set. It says shade the models to compare the fractions. And then I kind of changed this a little bit. So if you're working off the paper one, this might say something different. It says fill in the blank with the larger fraction in unit form. Now, I tried to make this easy because if you notice, here it's already written in unit form, so you don't have to change anything. You just have to figure out which one is larger. So we're looking for the larger or the bigger fraction. Okay, so first we're going to do some shading. This one wants us to shade 2/5 and 2/3. So each time we're shading 2 pieces. This fraction strip is divided into fifths. This fraction strip is divided into thirds. So let's go ahead and shade one. Let's make this a little bigger. One piece, 2 pieces. Okay, I'll shade 1 piece, shade 2 pieces. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to compare. And I actually realized I'm still using my tools over here. I'm going to switch to my pen so you guys can do it the same way I'm doing it. 2 pieces, 2 pieces. Okay, and then pen mode. Make sure it's not too thick. All right, so right now we have 2/5 and we're comparing it to 2/3. If we look and we draw a line here, we can see 2/5 is smaller. 2/3 goes farther and therefore is the bigger fraction. So if we were comparing them, we would make our alligator eat the bigger fraction, which is 2/3. 2/5 is less than 2/3. So in the box, you just need to type the larger fraction, which is 2/3. So remember, you need it in unit form. See how I got the check mark? If you write it in fraction form, it's going to mark it as wrong. So remember, it says in unit form, 2/3. And it's already written in unit form over here, so you don't have to worry about spelling. You can just copy what it says over there. All right, let's move on to the next one. 2/10 and 2/8. So once again, I'm shading 2 pieces. One piece, 2 pieces. 1 piece, 2 pieces. Now these ones are a lot closer in size, but you can see that the 8 pieces is still longer, which means it takes up a more amount of space, and that is the larger fraction. So I'm comparing 2/10 and 2/8, and we said the 2/8 is bigger, so the alligator is going to eat the 2/8. 2/10 is less than 2/8. In my box, I need to put the larger fraction in unit form, which is 2/8. Once again, you don't have to worry about spelling because it's written right there. Number 3 is 3/4 and 3/8. So 3 pieces, 2, 3. 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3. So we are comparing 3/4 and 3/8. This time we notice that the longer one is the one on top, which is 3/4. So 3/4 is larger, which means our alligator eats the 3/4. 3/4 is greater than 3/8. And I need to put that in unit form, the larger fraction, which is 3/4. Number 4, 4/8 and 4/6. So now I'm shading 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I notice that the bottom one here goes farther, takes up more space. That's the larger fraction. I'm comparing 4/8 and 4/6, and I notice that the 4/6 goes farther. That's the bigger one, so my alligator eats the bigger fraction. Then I need to type the bigger fraction in unit form, 4/6. That brings us to our last one. We're shading 3 pieces, 3/3, 1, 2, 3, and 3/6, 1, 2, 3. Now, you notice in this one that 3/3 is actually the whole fraction strip. So that's clearly the bigger fraction because it takes up the whole strip. So we're comparing 3/3 and 3/6. We see 3/3 takes up more space. It goes all the way. It's the bigger one. So our alligator eats that fraction. 3/3 is greater than 3/6. I need to write 3/3 in unit form. 3/3. And then we're all done for that problem set. Now let's pay attention to what we notice. In fifths and thirds, we said 2/3 was bigger. And we notice that the denominator okay. The denominator here, the bottom number, is smaller, which means it makes bigger pieces, so it ends up being the bigger fraction. On this next one, the bigger fraction ends up having a denominator that's the smaller number. Here, the bigger fraction has a denominator that's a smaller number. And here, the bigger fraction has a denominator that's the smaller number. And on the last one, the bigger fraction has the denominator with the smaller number. So, the smaller the denominator, equals a bigger fraction. Okay? So if we're trying to figure out which is larger, we're always going to write it in fraction form and see which of the numbers is smaller, and that means that's going to end up being our bigger number. Okay, so that's a little shortcut without using the picture, but we are going to have to shade to show our work on this. So you will get points for shading in addition to getting points for filling in the blanks. On some of your past worksheets, you guys are getting 100% or you're getting everything right in Classkick, but you remember that some of the stuff I go back and manually grade. So on an assignment last week, part of what you needed to do was to go on your number line and break it into pieces. And some of you did not get points for that because you just answered the questions instead of answering the questions and drawing the model. So you need to make sure, obviously, that you're watching this video, you're listening to what I'm saying and telling you to do on the worksheet, and that you're also reading what I ask you to do on the worksheet, because that's going to be worth points as well. All right, let's go back to my timer. First, I'll show you what the homework looks like, give you a sneak peek. Same thing, shade, and then write with the larger fraction in unit form in the blank. I'm going to start my timer after 10 minutes. If you still haven't finished, take a 5-minute break, go back, work on it again. If you still have questions, Please make sure to pop into my office hours or join your homeroom meeting. Okay, that's it for today. Remember, if you're not finished at this point, go ahead, take a 5-minute break, and then get back on. If you still can't figure it out, make sure you join me in my office hours. I can actually log into your Classkick with you and walk you through it.